Live. We are live now.
This is fine.
Yes.
Guys, we'll wait for another 10 minutes because we have very less participants right now. I think more than 200 people RSVP'd for this. So we'll wait for another 10 minutes and then we'll start. Okay? Good to have you guys here.
Just need to I need to just check right it is true.
All right. So we won't wait anymore. We'll just get started. I think this is not the laptop. Just wait. Can I get the laptop? Yeah. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, good to see you guys. Actually, we were planning for this third meetup. The last meetup was in Feb, okay, but we had a long gap because of some reasons. We were building our own product. So here we are again, okay, and welcome all of you to GeekyAnts. All right, okay. So have you guys seen these two logos somewhere, anywhere? No? Yeah? Okay. Okay. Do you guys know what NativeBase is? Raise your hand. Okay. Okay. I'll get into that in more detail after this. Great. So I think you guys are connected with Wi-Fi. This is the password. Free Wi-Fi. Okay. Not able to connect? Shruti, can you help us? Okay. And we also have a Slack team. So you can, once you're connected, you can just join this group. We'll be sharing a lot of information there on the Slack group. And after this, we'll be connected on Slack. All right? So a bit of swag. That's me, I'm Sanket, and this is a picture from the last vacation. This is not Europe, this is somewhere local. Okay, that's my Twitter handle. Okay, just a second, we'll just start the screen recording. Yeah, that's me, Sanket, and I'm the co-founder of GeekyAnts. We have many co-founders actually here, this is my Twitter handle. Here at GeekyAnts, we build mobile and web app. We are into React and React Native. In a strength, we are 65 people, and you can just make out who are from GeekyAnts, like this NativeBase t-shirt here. Okay. All right. And into React, to be specific, we started about 3 years ago, and React Native we started about a year and a half. Okay, and more than just using tools, we have contributed back to the community with our projects like NativeBase. NativeBase is a simple UI library which is built on top of React Native. Okay, and we have reached about 5,000 stars on GitHub, and this has been insanely famous in the React Native community. Right? And we also organize this, actually this one we organize it like once a month, and with the growing number of people in the community in this meetup group, we are planning of organizing something like React Asia, maybe in 3 months or 4 months. So wanted to hear your thoughts. Are you guys in for that? Yes? Yes. Okay. Cool. So let's get to know each other. That's about me and my buddies here. So maybe we can start from that corner. Yeah. So she is Shruti from GeekyAnts again, and Manishri from GeekyAnts again. Next to them is Chandru. Then, okay, we can start with that. Yeah. You can stand up. Do we have a mic? Yeah. Yeah. All right, you're going to get a lot of gifs in the slide, so brace yourself. Yeah.
I'm Namian.
Okay.
I'm currently working on React. I'm an intern and still doing my 8th semester.
Hello everyone, my name is Suresh Kumar. I'm a full stack developer at Data Labs. We do React Native apps in our company, and actually we are colleagues.
Hello guys, myself Kishore, and I'm working for Android developer in TechGenie solution.
Hi guys, it's Bobby. I'm working at Webster as a state developer at Android developer. I'm interested in that.
I would also like to know, like, if you guys are using React Native at all. In introduction, maybe you can
Just started.
all right.
Hi everyone, I'm Smita and I'm also from Virtues of Lattice. I'm a UI developer, and before Virtues I was working with CTS. So over there for POC applications we had developed the app in React.
Hi all. So my name is NativeBase. I was an IO engineer before and I just entered that application. So right now I'm developing a React Native application.
Hi, I'm Nagesh, and I'm glad to just learn more about React because I just started my first project on React now.
My name is Manish and I work for SC. I'm an instructor.
I'm Bhavati. I work for GeekyAnts as a web application developer and I'm using React. So I just wanted to know how React makes it work.
I work at Technica. I've just started with React. I would like to learn React.
Android. Okay. Native.
Hey, my name is Siddharth, and I'm a backend engineer. Just trying to figure out how things work on the React side of things.
And you are from Ashland?
Oh yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Hi, I'm Akshay Dhar. I'm a UI developer and I'm new to React and I work at NativeBase.
Hi, I'm Siddharth. I work at Capco. I'm a huge Gun fan and hate native, but I'm today here keeping an open mind.
And Siddharth is also a speaker today.
Hi everyone, my name is Vikram. I'm a UI UX designer. I'm very curious about this React. I just want to know how this works and all those things. That's why I came here. Thanks so much.
Hello, I'm Asha, so I'm a front-end developer. I recently started learning React, so I was just curious how it works and all this, so I just came to this directly.
I'm a native developer. Just eager to switch to React and do so okay for us.
Okay, native Android or iOS? Android.
Hi, I'm Vivi. I'm working for Recognize and I have 6.5 years of experience in doing native only. So I just want to know how this technology works basically.
Hello everyone, I'm Sonali. I'm working as an Android developer in-house, right? So I just wanted to get started working with React Native. So I am new. I don't know anything.
Hi, this is Harish. I'm a UX and UI designer. I want to know how it works in React Native. So I'm very interested on the React Native JS.
Hi, my name is Manoj. I'm from Manager. So I'm an Angular developer, but really want to start with Reactive and React Native. So I want to use this in a graphics stuff.
My name is Pradeep. I work in Android as a web developer. So we primarily are into Angular, and we are exploring and evaluating other frameworks. So just give us some knowledge.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Monisha. I'm working in InfraTab, and I'm currently a UI developer and looking forward to learn React, its fundamentals and concepts.
Hi everyone, I'm Avinash. I'm from First Walking Technologies, and I'm curious about React Native as a starter, so I came to here at what is
Hi, this is Puneet. I'm an iOS developer, but I've been here in React.
Hi, this is Akul. I'm from our kingdom. I'm working as a React developer. So looking forward to this.
Hi, I'm Janine. I'm from Pakistan. I'm starting working on the React Native.
Hello, I'm Chitra. I'm a software developer, and I had like 4 years of experience in Java. So now I've decided to try out new things. So React Native it is.
Good to see so many Java and Swift developers switching to JavaScript.
Yeah, this is Pradeep. I'm the co-founder as well over here.
And he's the managing director.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Anshul. Basically from Android working at React.
You guys from Hyper or switching to React?
Not switching, but I have a hobby of developing applications. So learning on the React. Thanks.
I'm Anshul Jain. I'm working in Meetup, and Janki and more are my colleagues. I recently started React Native. I was working on Ionic Angular. I started working on React.
You came for the last
Yeah, correct. I asked some of the questions.
Okay. Who is here?
Everyone, I'm Abid. I'm new to Native. I'm like a bit curious and I'm aspiring developer. So I hope I learn something.
Myself, I'm for a startup called Excellence. I work as a front-end developer. I worked on React. I want to how React is.
Okay, great. Okay, so I again welcome you all because a lot of guys joined after that. So I think already a full house. Alright, so the guys who introduced themselves are from GeekyAnts, and again they're wearing that black t-shirt, NativeBase logo. Alright, moving on. So the format of today's talk will be based on these parameters actually. So I think we can just quickly have a voting. JavaScript developers in house. Most of them. Okay. Work with React. Half of them. And work with React Native. Very less. Okay. So okay. And native developers. 20% across, yeah. And use NativeBase at all? That's okay. Shameless promotion, I will say. All right. Okay. So I think there are many people who are starting with React Native here. You'll learn a lot today because the first talk is based on starting an application from scratch using React Native. We have series of speakers today who will be coordinating and building an app. That's the first one. Yeah, this is the one. Build a simple React Native app from scratch. That's by GeekyAnts team, where we have Jasveer. Okay, that is here. Then Bhavesh. Yeah, and then we have Rishabh. Okay, and then Shankari. Hello. And then Himanshu. Himanshu. Okay. All right. That's the first talk going to be, and then the second one is by your rockstar Siddharth from Practo, and he'll be talking about porting an existing mobile website to React Native. Can Can we have a round of applause for them? Alright, so moving on, I'll just hand it over to Jasmine. Yep.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to speak here. Let's talk about this slide for now. So, actually, we often wonder what is happening to the world around us. I mean, like things are changing. Things aren't what they used to be 4 or 5 years from now. So, what exactly is going on? So, it has been speculated for quite some time now that what we are witnessing today is the brink of a 4th industrial revolution. So it all started with steam engines. That was the first industrial revolution. So we realized that we can do some pretty interesting things with steam engines. So we made some machines, we got things moving, and it worked good for us then. Later on, electricity came into the market. So electricity had a wide variety of applications, ones that we are aware of right now. And it covered almost all the areas of the globe. Next came the time for microelectronics, superconductor industries with computers and technology taking over. So if we think that what we are witnessing today is a continuation of the third revolution, it's not. That's because technology, the time at which we are living right now, has covered almost all spheres, including physical, biological and mental spheres. Actually, if you think about it, technology is more or less doing all of your job for you today. And we're basically changing the world through this. So, it's not just about computers. I'll give you a simple example. There's this new product, these ECG extensions, which can be mounted on your head. And it comes coupled with your smartphone. So, you can actually monitor your brain activity. So, it doesn't sound so cool if I say it that way, but actually it's the foundation of a scientific revolution. That's because you can actually understand what effects the brain has on maybe aging or genomes and stuff like that. And science and technology is one of the few things where you can just sit down, make something from scratch, and then have it in your hands. And press a button, have it in millions of people's hands. So we are, I guess, the first generation who are experiencing this kind of power. We have more power than the President of the United States a few years from now. Let's talk a little bit about evolution of mobile phones. So mobile phones have seen a vast change in their applications. Initially, we didn't have much. There wasn't much you could do with a smartphone. But today they come coupled with sensors and stuff. So there's some pretty cool stuff you can do with sensors. Like you could maybe understand gestures that the user is doing. Let's talk a little bit about the app development history. So initially what happened was mobile apps, the content was very rigid. So whatever the content owner wanted to show on the app, that's what showed up on the app. Now we have customizable apps, like we allow the user to customize it. The future will actually have platforms where you could just input some of your requirements and the system makes the app for you. I guess app development has to change, it has to get a little bit easier. Like maybe something like you drag and drop objects and that makes an app for you. There was actually an idea that we were discussing. I discussed with Sanket. He doesn't think it's a good idea, I guess. Alright, some problems with native coding. So, for starters, it's difficult to lay it out on a screen. Mostly, like, suppose you have some views, you have to manually compute their width, height, and then place them where you want them. With React Native, we have a couple of different options like Flexbox. The next problem with native mobile
application development is that you have to develop code separately for separate platforms, that is for iOS and Android. And the code base has to be maintained separately, which is difficult. And moreover, like for a web application, suppose you make some changes and then you reload the browser and you see those changes. For a native application, even if you switch the text from here to let's say 2 or 3 pixels to the right or left, you have to reload the entire app every single time you do that. So that's time that can be used productively, and that's a wastage of time. So we'll actually have Bhavesh here, who is going to talk about React Native and how it overcomes some of the problems that you see with native app development. Bhavesh? Yeah, it works.
This also is good. Okay, so I'm going to talk about what React Native really is. I guess most of you are not from the JavaScript background. So I'm going to tell you about what React Native is. It's basically a UI library which was developed internally at Facebook in around 2014 or maybe a year earlier. Can't hear it? Can't hear it. Hello. We are in. Is it audible everywhere? Yeah. So what that really is so there were so many problems in native development. You take a lot of time to develop a single button. You style it and then reload the whole app. It takes the whole recompilation process, and then you see what the output of that app is. But wouldn't it be cool if you do all of that in JavaScript? You can just make web apps, native apps, and all of this just using a single language. So, okay, I'll just tell you about what the advantages of React Native are. It's an app. When you develop an app in JavaScript, it gets compiled by React, and it's actually a real mobile app. It's not a hybrid app, it's not a HTML5 app or a web app. It's actual native app which is indistinguishable from the native app which you build using Objective-C or Java. So, yeah, there are many features in React which you will love, I guess. One of them is hot reloading. When you open an editor, you change one line, and you can see the live change of that line in the simulator. They're just running simultaneously. And even if you don't buy it yet, you can always code all of those things in Java or Objective-C and use it. You can always code all those things and use it simultaneously with your React code. That is JavaScript and Java. All of those code will run simultaneously in the same app.
Actually, I'd like to elaborate on this point. The thing with bridging is that, suppose you want some more fine tuning in your app, like suppose there's some component in native Java or Objective-C that you want to be used in React Native that hasn't been developed in React Native yet. So React Native comes with an awesome library for bridging. So what you do is that you bridge whatever you want from native into React Native, and this works fine because I've actually done that in one of my projects. That was with Google VR, so we bridged that in React Native, and that component works fine. So it's not that it's the end of native app development. We always need native application, and in fact, React Native app actually converts in the background to native app itself.
So yeah. Okay, now I'm going to tell you how that React actually works. See, in React Native, you code something in JavaScript. So it's normally like in HTML you have tags, and in React Native you have tags as well, but they are with a different names like view, text, and all. And it's very, deterministic. That is, if you write a tag like view in React Native, it gets converted into the UI view of iOS and the native view of Android, and all of that is taken care of by React. And then, let's see an example over here. It's like the main part of an app is the list. So you can see most of the app, you can just write the tag like list view and have source of that data in there, and React Native just converts it into native Android and iOS. So that's how it works. But it's not always rainbows and unicorns over here. They have some more problems as well. Like those native developers over here might have seen that integrating SDKs of Facebook and Android and every third-party app takes a bit longer than usual. And that's the same case with React Native as well. In React Native also, it takes a lot of time to just do that thing. And another issue with React Native over there is asset management. When you have to, manipulate an image or take a file, upload it to some server or something, it takes a lot of time to actually get it working without any issues. And then there are new versions everywhere. It's not a stable build yet. I mean, it is stable, but there's active development going on in Facebook everywhere. So every month,
a pro point also.
it's a pro because you get new features every month, and developers everywhere are working around it. But the con is that if you want to be on the latest version every time, you have to, take that version, integrate it in your app, and it takes some bit of time, but you get new features. So that's a pro. So they know that every people knew that these are the problems in React Native. So they have come up with a solution, which is going to be talked about by Rishabh in the next slide.
Hello everyone. As I got to know there is only 20% of React Native developers. So I will be throwing a new topic. You might think that we haven't heard of React Native and haven't tried, and there is a new topic again, and it's called as Expo. Few of the people community from the React Native community was struggling with this how we talked about. It is what a React Native is. Expo is a wrapper over React Native. What it does is it hide the native module and it gives you all the bridging library inbuilt in that. Like Facebook is one of the greatest systems that we use in most of the apps for signing and logging. So basic part is we used to sign in. Then in React Native or in native module, we have to do a lot of things in that. In React Native is 3 hours of pain for a normal developer. And in native I don't know because I haven't tried. So the best part is that Expo has came up with the Facebook and they have called something as CRNA, Create React Native App. And it's awesome. Most of the things that you need to do in React Native are been simplified and just 2 lines of code. Then you can save your time. Save your time into writing React Native.
Not a good sign.
But you can use CRNA, I guess. So why we choose CRNA or Expo rather than React Native, the official one? It's also official. They have collaborated with Facebook. So it's not, you can say you won't have to worry, and it's open source. Apart from that, the very first point is support for iOS and Android. Why we use this? Because in using this, we don't have to install Xcode and Android simulator. That's a big pain for any one of us. Like we have to install Xcode for running Android app, iOS app, and for Android we need to have Android emulator or Android SDK. So we need not to install something like this for building app. When we are building any CRNA, push notification, the basic point. Push notification when we are using React Native, most of us use one signal like this. So we need to have installed pods and something like that. So I and Bhavesh were working and we were just using upgrades of all our things. So we can't figure out how to upgrade that. So we just give her that idea and we just ported our app to CRNA. But the issue with this CRNA is push notification is essentially with the Expo developer. Like it's not being, you cannot send something that on your behalf. It's with the Facebook, means Expo developers. So in the backend they take care of that. And Facebook and Google login, it's like just one line of code that you do in React Native. So it saves your time by about 2.5 hours that you used to do. Instant updating, you need not to do every time update in React native component. When you are building native component, you need to do generate an APK and something test on that. So when you are building Expo, you just need to scan the QR code. That is quite awesome. That we like. And asset managers are really awesome. Like just you need to get the URL fresh from the system only, and just 2-3 lines of code and you will get the asset. Is very easy. That was a pain in React Native or in native. Easier native building. They can just easily upgrade to any of the release. Just Expo keep on updating new features. Like recently they have come up with pediometer. I guess many of you have heard of that. And they have got most of the sensor and SQLite. So they are upgrading. Maybe in the coming release they have come up with more new features. So this.
I have a question.
So just now you told something about React Native, now you told something about Expo. So now you're telling I should use Expo, not React Native. So can you tell me what exactly is Expo and how it is different from React Native?
Yeah, sure.
Because like too much I'm confused.
Yeah, sure, fine. Thank you for the question. So basically, Expo is a wrapper over React Native. What we used to do in React Native is like we were showing the native code, like Android and iOS folder. So what you can do is you can just manipulate it to the native code, like you have to do something. So in Expo you have given all the features that you use normally, like React Native Map is one of the features and the Facebook. So what they have done is they have abstracted the class, abstracted the native module. So they have came up with this. If you are newbie, you can just try CRNA instead of going for React Native. I guess that's the main point.
Is CRNA is a library?
CRNA is basically a package that Facebook has come up with along with Expo.
I'd like to add some points. So what React Native is that React Native is a library that helps you make cross-platform mobile applications. So Exponent is not different from React Native. It's just a wrapper around React Native. It just comes with a couple of more features, like with React Native you need like suppose you need to do development for iOS, so you need Xcode. So for people who don't have a Mac system, you could develop React Native applications in your Windows systems also if you have Expo installed. So that's why we actually asked everyone to have NPM installed in their laptop, because it works just with NPM. So it will start up the packages for you, it will make the app for you. You just create React Native app on your terminal and then give the name of the terminal, so it sets up everything for you. So with React Native, it comes with some added features. Like for one of the things,
Expo is not related to Facebook or React Native, right?
No, it is.
It's not from Facebook, right? Expo.
No, they have the Expo developer. They have first come up with this idea. Then they earlier the name was Exponent. So they have collaborated with Facebook and they have launched a new platform known as CRNA. So it's from Facebook only.
Excuse me, can I have one? Yeah, we are here for the person who asked the first question. What's it?
That was convenient. Alright, so now you see how people will be getting t-shirts and goodies if you answer questions. So we'd like this to be a little more interactive session. And if there's anything that didn't make sense till now, we are just free to take any questions that you have in your mind. Like, is everything clear till now? I'll take that as a yes.
So there was a lot of theory that few of people have explained. Let's get to a demo.
So this is where it gets interesting. We'll actually code a live app for you and show it to you. I hope you like the GIFs. I did them myself. Alright, so you just go ahead with the installation first. So create React Native app is this. I guess it's visible now. Create React Native app is a global CLI that you have to install globally on your system, and then if you just do create React Native app and then give the name of your app and then just hit enter. So this would actually set up a project for you in React Native, but this actually takes up some time, so we are going to skip this step for now. We've actually done this already, so we'll just go to the landing screen, like what it looks like once this has completed.
I think you should explain that the first line, how you installed that Create Native.
CLI? Alright.
Yeah, the CLI tool.
Alright, let's do that. We'll move over to the documentation actually. We'll just move, yes.
The line of code which you wrote was of Expo, right? Not React Native.
We haven't actually, yes, there was
Yeah.
Expo, yes. He actually wrote it mistake. There was a time it should be create React Native. Yeah.
This is the CLI you can install using NPM.
So this is how you install your CLI, and it sets up your. Later on, like you can use this CLI to set up your apps. Can we move to the live coding session?
interruption. CRN actually stands for Create React Native. Is it more of a superset of this Expo? Expo is more of the implementation of
this. Basically, Expo first came up with this idea. Then they have collaborated with Facebook, and the Facebook has given the name like CRN.
Yeah, so about React Native and CRN, I think it's getting confusing, guys, for everyone. You guys are here for React Native, and then we are throwing a new jargon for you, that is exponent and CRN. Okay, what is it about? Alright, so React Native actually is native development. That's the first thing. Okay, so to do native development, you need Android SDK if you are targeting Android, and you will need iOS SDK if you are targeting, say, iPhone. Okay, so actually whatever you build here in React Native, like we have tags like view and text, that gets compiled to native. Okay, and with the help of the SDK, it actually talks to the native layer. So that's React Native is all about. But there are problems, like on Windows systems you cannot develop an app for iOS, right? So these guys, there's this very famous guy, his name is Brent Watney. Okay, he came up with the idea. He said, do we really need the native environment, or can we wrap that into a JavaScript layer, and people can just use that JavaScript API and not the native layer, and develop the mobile app. So Exponent is about the same idea, like taking the JavaScript API and then wrapping the native layer so that you can just talk to the JavaScript API and just not worry about anything native. Okay, so they came up with a tool called Exponent, which you can install using NPM. Okay, NPM is the JavaScript package manager, which I think you guys know. Okay, so you can just install that using NPM and then write your code in pure JavaScript, and you won't need any dependency of native code. Okay, so if you, getting back to the React Native, if you start a React Native project, you have this iOS and Android folder. But with CRN or Expo, sorry, I won't confuse with CRN, but with Exponent, we don't have iOS and Android folder. Okay, we just have plain JavaScript file. Okay, and then comes CRN. So CRN is just an alias to Expo. So we'll be using that word interchangeably. Okay, so if we say Expo or CRN is the same thing. Okay, Expo was not from Facebook. This was from a team led by Brent Watney. Later, Facebook embraced this idea and they renamed this Expo with CRN. Okay, and CRN stands for Create React Native App. I hope that is clear now.
Get started. I mean, I don't. Do I need to? You did this npm install and CRN, right?
Yes.
I do. Do I need to do again this npm install and Expo? No.
No, Expo is not needed. Expo is renamed as Create React Native App. That's it. Okay. So to start a simple Expo or CRN app, all you do is create React Native app, space the name of your app. Okay. It just builds a simple folder with an entry script of app.js. Okay, which we have it here. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
So I just want to know how stable is Expo, and there are these things like Redux and everything, state management in React. So are those things compatible with Expo or?
Yeah. So what you're talking about is a lot of different things, and we call it in general terms as JavaScript fatigue. Okay. JavaScript world is so open source and it's so not in control of everyone, is that every day you see a new framework, every day you see a new state management library, and that's the problem. Okay, so we won't touch Redux and all those things. We'll come back to that in the next slides. Okay, for now just think it as a simple app which will just have an entry script, and if you make changes to that entry script, it will just render something on your phone. Okay,
so is it a stable thing?
we'll talk about that in a bit.
How different is it from?
How different is React Native from Ionic and Apache Cordova?
That's $1 million question. We'll be talking about it.
I guess most of you have installed this.
And one more thing, like you see the QR code on the screen, so you could actually scan the QR code from your app, the Exponent app on your mobile phones, and it actually works. It won't work now because we haven't done anything. Alright, so we'll get started with this. So this is what the landing screen would look like. The text would be different. Then you got separate text like welcome to React Native, stuff like that. So we're actually going to edit all of this, and we are making a Star Wars app. So we'll extract some data from the Star Wars API, which I found online. So, and we'll display those items as a list. So for now, we just have two screens that we'll be talking about. One would be a home screen where we just have a button that takes us to a next screen. And the next screen will just have a list that displays all the items that it has just fetched from the API code. So this is a very simple app that we are going to be making. So let's just start by making the screen. We are going to make a folder called src at the root.
Can you talk about like what this is?
Okay, what the folder structure means. Okay, so this is basically what you see on the screen right now. This will come by default whenever you do create React Native app, my app, and then you open it up in the editor. So the file that you see there, app.js, this is actually the entry file. This is where the project loads from. This is the root. So any components that we would like to see on the screen, we'd actually pass here. Any routers, like suppose we want to navigate between 2 or 3 screens, so we'd actually pass a router somewhere here. And like as we go ahead, you'll see this interesting thing called component. So component is an interesting concept. The thing is that anything that you can see on the screen is actually a component. So suppose you want 2 or 3 components, so we can make 2 or 3 files, have them imported to our root, and then show them on the screen. Alright, so we'd actually be making one component which would be our home screen. So we'll make a .js file and we'll name it just homescreen.js. Okay, so in here we are going to just take care of the default imports that we want. So, alright, could you just show all the imports? Okay, so we need React and component from React. So this React is already there by default, so you don't have to install it again. And these other components that you see, these come as default with React Native, like image, touchable opacity, dimensions, views. These come as default with React Native. So we'll explain the usage of these as we go ahead. Alright, we are going to make a class now. So this is where our code will actually, yes.
So how does Expo work without the iOS and Android?
Actually, the code itself, like if you want to have the native components of the native code, you could actually do that. You could publish it and then have the native modules also. Extract the native modules.
So the views are actually set in those folders, right? So your first screen is actually in either the iOS folder or in the Android folder, right? So that's how on iOS the root view is defined, and in Android likewise, right?
Right. So that's the case with Create React. That's the case with normal React Native app. With Create React Native app, we don't have to worry about the native code. So it's entirely the JavaScript code that you have to think about, and that's it. Alright, so we've actually made a basic class here. It's called home screen. It extends component because it has to be a component. And next is the render method. This is the method that is called in order to show all the UI views. Anything that you place inside the return statements will actually show up on the screen. So that's how this works. Now, I'd like to address the two main components that we see here. One is the view, inside which you see the images. So the view is basically a wrapper. Anything that you want to show on the screen comes inside this view. So you've seen that we have given it a style of flex equal to 1. So what that means is that it will take up the entire space that is available to it. That's all that means. And next we also have an image which would. So the image we have provided the source as Star Wars GIF, which we don't actually have it right now. So we are actually going to copy the GIF. copy the zip. And we passed it as so we placed the two GIFs that we are going to be needing. The GIF is actually the background of our home screen that we want to show. And go back to the home screen. Alright, so in the home screen we've also given the image of height and width equal to the height and width of the window that is available to it. So basically it takes up the entire screen. So we'd like the wallpaper to show up on the entire screen. So actually go ahead and save it now. Alright, so he saved it, but we don't see anything showing up on the screen. That's because we haven't actually imported our component. So, like I said, app.js is a main root. That's where our app is going to load from. So we'll pass this home screen component inside our app.js. So first we're going to import this. Here we are just giving it a path, like inside src folder, there's a home screen file that we want, and we are just placing it inside the return. So now that we save it, we should see something. Alright, so we have the GIF showing up. That's a pretty awesome GIF for a background. So next what we need is that maybe we'll have a logo somewhere in the middle for Star Wars to show up, and then a button that takes us to the next screen. That's all we are going to have in the home screen. The home screen shouldn't be too cluttered, it should be simple. So we're just going to add the logo now. So add the logo. So we placed one image. This is the image that I extracted from the internet. I placed it inside a view, and we've given it various styles that you can actually look into, or I could explain if there's a confusion. So justify content, yes.
On what basis are you defining that flex attribute value?
Yes. See, what happens is that flex is actually a ratio. So suppose this is my whole screen, and I want two components where the first component should take up one part and the next component should maybe take up three parts. So 1:3, I want it to be divided like that. So for the first component, I'd give it a flex of 1. For the next component, I'd give it a flex of 3. So it's a ratio actually, in which you want the space to be divided. And along with flex, we also have some other properties like flex direction. So how would you like to arrange the items, like maybe horizontally or vertically? And apart from that, justify content, it tells you how would your components in whichever direction that you're aligning them, how would they look like? Should they be at the top or bottom or at the center? Same goes for align items. So this is for vertical and horizontal alignment. So in our case, we'd like the logo to appear exactly in the center, so we've given center for both. Justify content and align items. I hope this is clear. Next, we are just going to add one button, and that would be it for our home screen. Okay, so we have an error here. This is the first error showing up. Alright, so you can see the code for button. We actually use touchable opacity. We also have a button in React Native, but I personally don't like using it. So button is also a wrapper around touchable itself. So it doesn't matter that way. It's just more flexible. You could give it a border radius to have then rounded edges, and then color and width, height, and then you could align it in the center. Like you give those properties to its parent, and it aligns it to the center. So yes.
We don't need to specify any ID for the components which we are developing, right? I mean, usually CSS will define some ID, and using that ID you will give that. So here, what I see is we are not doing that. Whenever we are specifying any component, we are just specifying the CSS if we are in the same.
Yes. So, however you want your components to show up on the screen, that's how you write it. It's as simple as that. We actually don't need IDs for like we could actually assign IDs to them and have logic, but that could be where our program gets a little more complex. For now, I just want the items to be aligned as they look. So yes, that's how we do it.
I would like to elaborate. So this is a new concept going on in JavaScript world. We call it a CSS in JS. Okay. So the way traditional HTML and CSS works, React is making it different. Like initially we used to have models and the view layer as separate files. But React came up with an idea where we have the view injected right in the controller, okay, and also have the model maybe somewhere there. Then there's this new transition wherein we are not even having the styles as separate files, but we write CSS right inside JavaScript. If this looks dirty to you, maybe for experienced CSS developers, this looks a little ugly. You can separate that style object in a new file and then again import it. So that's how we separate style and this thing.
Then how will DOM parser run at the background?
So there's no DOM in JavaScript, in React and React Native. So we have something called virtual DOM, and it always works with data. So say if you want to hide some element, in traditional JavaScript you would select that with ID and pass that style display none. Okay? But in React and React Native you would just have a variable and change that variable from true to false and write the conditional in your view so that whenever that variable changes, just don't render this part. Okay, so the concept is totally different. This is not with React Native, but with React in general, actually. The concept of conditional and selecting the elements and all those things. Alright? Yeah.
Okay, so
Also,
yeah.
can you explain this, how this alignment is working?
Alright. Could you just scroll? So you see the first view where we've given a flex one. So that would be the entire screen that you see. So anything that you see on the screen is actually inside that view. Next we passed an image. So inside that view, we'd like the image to fill up the entire space of the view also. So we couldn't actually do that, so we passed it a height and width explicitly, and we measured the window height using dimensions. So dimensions can be imported from React Native. Just show it. Alright, so dimensions have been imported from React Native. Alright, come back. So next we have a view which we have given it a flex 5. So just highlight the view. Just this view. Highlight the view. Yeah, just this one. Go down. Alright, this view that you see, this is actually a logo. So we've given it a flex of 5, and the next view that you see, we've given it a flex of 2. So that's how I would like my app to look like. I would like it to be divided in a ratio of 5:2. So the button actually takes up 2 parts and the logo takes up 5 parts. So that would be the parent component. Inside this view, we've passed our image. And inside the parent component, we've just done the justify content center, align item center. So inside that parent, it aligns the logo in the center somewhere. And with the next view, we've done the same thing. We've given justify content center, align item center, and we've passed the button inside it. So it looks how it looks.
So everything will be composed inside the view component.
It's not necessary, but yes, it's mostly we wrap things inside a view component. So there's one thing that I actually wanted to talk about. Like, this is a very basic screen. We just have a logo and we just have a button, but still we see that a lot of code has to be written, a lot of inline styles, and we actually had to pass the width, height, background colors and stuff like that. And unnecessarily actually, because we actually don't need to pass font size and stuff if we use some libraries. So who can think of a library that actually does this? Please tell me it's NativeBase. Yes, please. NativeBase. Okay, I thought you had a question.
You can talk about it. Yeah, just you can talk about it.
Also, this is NativeBase, and it has 1,098 followers. It's 100% open source. I actually didn't prepare this part, so.
Okay, so we actually started with React Native quite long back. It was like 1.5 years ago we started when it was announced for Android. So the day when it was announced, we thought, okay, we are the early adopters, we have to try it. So we gave it a try, and then sooner we realized that there is a big room for improvement, or the things are not full baked. Okay, so we got this, like every view and every text needed this sort of custom style. There was not even a button component. There was nothing like columns and grids. There were no tabs. Like it was very bare bones. So we thought, okay, and we had to work on that. We started working on mobile apps. So we started building components which we internally used for multiple apps, like button, like tabs, and all those things. And later we open sourced that part, and then we called it NativeBase. And that's how people also started using it. That there was a need that we need some sort of UI library, and that's when we introduced NativeBase. All right. And as of today, we have 4,700 stars. So when this slide was made, it was 40 less. So it's 4,700 and something at the moment. And maybe a couple of weeks we'll be hitting 5,000 stars. And yeah, so that's about it. And it's 100% open source. Many people are using it. Many companies, I would say in Silicon Valley and Europe. I was in React Amsterdam just a couple of weeks back, and there people already knew about it. So I was showing off wearing this NativeBase t-shirt, and people were like, oh, you are the guy who was behind this, and that was fascinating. Okay, yeah. So that's about NativeBase. We are going to continue building our app. The first street which Rishabh and Jasveer built. We'll build the second street, but in a more cleaner way, so that we don't have inline styles, and it's pretty clean. Okay, get back to work.
We are actually going to be using NativeBase in our app. And yes, it is this easy. So actually what we are going to do is we'll make another file. It's called mainList.js. So this is the actual list that we are going to be displaying. So once we click on this button, get species, it should take us to a list that has the species. So we don't actually have the data, we are going to be fetching it from the Star Wars API as aforementioned. So we took care of the imports, just save it and yeah. So you actually have to install NativeBase before you can do this. So if you would go over to the documentation, you just do npm install NativeBase, that does save and it takes care of the rest. Yes. So this is what you need to do. And then you have all these components, containers, intent, card items, buttons, all of this in one single file. Alright, so next we are going to make a class called mainList.js. Just edit. Also it spells out mainList. And it's throwing an error. That's because we are not actually returning anything from this component. I guess these concepts are clear by now, the concept of component and everything else. These tags that you see on the top are actually NativeBase components that we are going to be using instead of the view that was mentioned. So, okay, this is actually the basic background of our app. So, we are having the same image again, and apart from that, we have a container. So, container is actually this wrapper component inside which everything goes. Like in the previous screen, we had this view, we gave it a flex of 1, and everything else was inside that. So here we just have a container, and then you pass everything else inside it. So just go ahead and save this, and let's see how this looks like. But nothing will show up because back in our root, like in the app.js, we are actually returning home screen. We haven't imported our new screen, so we are going to do that now. So now we've imported and then we are just going to, instead of the home screen, we are going to add the main list component here. So what we should see in our app would be the main list component without errors. Okay, we have an error. Okay, this is the problem, prettier. Alright, so we have the same GIF again. We have our basic canvas where we can go ahead and play. So next what we are going to do is that we actually want to display items as a list. So we are going to be needing a list, and we already have a list in NativeBase. So we are just going to add that list inside that image, because anything that we see should be inside that image. So anything, the list will actually be passing inside the image. So that would be our list component, and as you see that it comes with two props. We just mentioned list, and then there's data array, there's render row. So data array is the actual data that will populate the list. So it's there by default in the state, and render row is just basically how would you like to, the separate components to show up. So here we just passed one item. So this is what it would look like. So we've just done, we've just imported list items and card. So each and every item, each and every species will actually show up as a list item, and all of that is inside one list. I hope that makes sense. So we don't actually have any data available in our app right now. We haven't done any API requests. So we are going to do that. First we just define a constructor here. Okay, so this is a basic constructor. And inside this we've defined our state, and which comes with two props, data and loaded, which actually isn't very important. Okay, this is the main working of an app. This is where the magic happens. So this URL that you see, that is actually the Star Wars. This is the Star Wars API. This is from where the data will be fetched. So when I do API/people, it gets me all the species. So .then is actually an async function. So once you submit a request to the API, the response comes after some time. So you wouldn't want to execute that on the main thread. It would throw up errors. So what we'd like to do is we'd like to know when the data has been loaded and then show it. So as long as the data hasn't been loaded, we'd actually be showing a spinner on the screen. And then once we have the data, we'll populate it. So once the response comes in the .then function, as you can see, so we've actually logged the data and then we passed it inside the state. So in our list, you'll notice that we are actually using the state variable data. So it's getting populated like this. So we are actually able to see the list, but nothing appears here. That's because we haven't actually passed anything. So we just, for now, we just want the names of different items to be displayed. So we just do item.name and then we close the text tag. And that would be it. We don't have the spinner. So once we can actually see the data showing up on the screen, but we'd like a spinner to appear when the data is getting loaded. So for that, Rishabh is taking care of it. This is your state. If the data is not loaded, we'd actually want to show a spinner. And once the data is loaded, we'll show the default component. Return. So you see the spinner that's appearing on top. Reload the page once again. So you see the spinner on the top. So that's our data getting fetched, and once the data is fetched, we are populating a list. So we actually have two screens which are working, and we are going to add navigation and more stuff to it later maybe. We'll move over to slides now. Okay, so the thing with navigation, like what does navigation actually mean? So right now we designed two screens. One is the list screen and another is the home screen, but we haven't actually added any functionality to go from one screen to another. So that's where navigation comes in. So what we are going to do is that, alright, suppose you go over to NPM and you just do React Native navigation, you'll come up with something around 140 packages. So that's a lot of stuff to navigate, and which one to choose from, which is the main problem. So we are actually discussing some of the navigators. I could actually use some help here with Shanku, or maybe because I'm not aware of all of these. I've used just a few.
So when React Native came up with, when Facebook came up with React Native, they had a very low-level navigator, and people actually face this problem. Like if you want to navigate from screen A to screen B, and the problem was actually because they wanted this navigator to be cross-platform, and navigation is actually handled differently on iOS and differently on Android, because if we have iOS developer now, they know that we have this header component which comes with the navigator, and you can pass the text and the back button and all those things. But with Android, we don't have that header as a part of the navigation screen. You have to include that header in every file separately. So to have a common API for different platforms, it's really tough, and Facebook actually took a lot of time. They had a series of navigator. Initially they came up with Navigator, then they came up with Navigation Experimental, which was actually better than Navigator. We used Navigation Experimental for like many apps for about 3-4 months. Then we used React Native Router Flux, which was by another team but not from Facebook, which gives you more like an Angular way of routing stuff. So, and since we come from Angular background, we were very comfortable with React Native Router Flux. Recently, they have announced React Navigation, and now Facebook is embracing that in their official documentation. So we hope that we have now a standard solution for navigation, that is React Navigation. So I think we'll be showing a couple of stuff from that. Yeah. Okay, so we'll just, since we have 2 screens right on the board, we'll try to navigate from first screen to second screen using React Navigation. All right? Okay, so we'll just get to the code.
Now we can get. So now we can get to our code. So we have 2 screens, which actually we should see. So if we do home screen here and save it, it should show us the home screen. So when I press this button, I'd like to go to the next screen. So like Sanket discussed, there are a lot of options with navigation. You could choose any one of them. I personally like React Navigation because I had a project on it. But so I already have React Navigation installed, as you can see in my packager JSON, and we are actually going to be putting up this code on GitHub, so you could go back and review. So I'm not going to be installing React Navigation now, but it's simple. So what we are going to be doing is that we'll just make another file here. So this would be a router component.
Switch your mic. Switch your mic. It's connected.
You can switch on your power mic. That works.
Hello. Alright, so we made a router component, and what we are going to do is that actually have the code with me.
So it's going to be much of work, we can take it offline.
It's not. I just need to copy it. So this what you see is this, all of it is usable. Right, so we've imported React and component from React, and we've imported our 2 screens that we just made. So this is the home screen and the main list, and we've imported Stack Navigator. So this is one of the navigation options. It comes with 2 others, which is Stack Navigation and Drawer Navigation. For our purposes, we can settle with Stack Navigation for now. So we are exporting a drawer component here from this particular file, and next in our root file, in our app.js, we are going to be passing this router component itself. So we are just defining our screens by the name of home screen and main list. So this is it. This is the basic setup that we need to do. Just import Stack Navigator, and inside the object you just pass your screens. as it has been shown. So we'll go ahead and save this and import this in our app. So we'll just import router from router, and we'll pass the router component inside the root. As we see that it's showing up, but there's a minor glitch. We see a unnecessary header appearing on top. So this is what React navigation does. It actually appends headers for you by itself if you're using stack navigation. So what if I don't want my home screen to have a header? So it's very simple. You just go into the source code and you do static navigation options, and then you do header null. So that's what you do if you don't want the header. That's header 1. And we also wouldn't want our header to be appearing on the other component, which is a main list. So we'll do the same thing there. Alright, so once we've done this, and okay, one interesting thing here that we've actually imported router here, and inside router we've passed 2 screens. So how does it know which screen to show first? Like, these things are smart, they know. No one laughs at my jokes. Alright, so now that we've passed our 2 screens inside our router component, the navigation prop is available as this .props.navigation. That's it. So this is our button where the get species button, this is it. So when I press this button, I'd like to go on the next screen. So we just add an on press prop here. So on press is equal to, and this is actually a function. This is a ES6 syntax. We're using flat arrows here. So on press, we would like to navigate it to the next screen. So we do this .props .navigation .navigate, and then whatever name we pass here, that's the name we pass there. So we'd like to navigate to the main list, so we pass the main list here, and hopefully it should do that for us now. So once we press this button, we have the spinner appearing, and then we have the next screen appearing. We'd also like it to work vice versa, like we'd like to go back to the initial screen also, so we'll add a header here. So this is actually, alright, this. So we've used NativeBase here, so we are going to use a NativeBase header. So we move over to the docs and just copy. So we'll just copy from the header code here, and we'd like our header to appear on the top since it's the header. And actually I removed certain components from the right and the body prop. That's because I don't want anything to show up there. Or maybe we could have a title, or maybe not. We could just have this button, a back button, like when you press it, it should go back to the previous screen. So we just add an on press prop here as well. On press is equal to, again this is the function. So we do this dot props dot navigation dot go back. This is it. Now as you can see, the code is very readable. There's not much to it. Like in order to achieve this, nothing is required.
I have a doubt.
Yes.
Is there any way that we can change the transition because by default, not the default one?
Okay.
Like some other way.
I wouldn't know about it actually.
I just want to do one thing. Can you go to the router.js and flip that options?
Very good questions, one by one, to answer this question. We don't have anything available at the moment, but yes, yeah, it will be available in the future as the docs says. Okay.
Okay, like it with.
First keep the main list running.
Alright.
Remove the
That's a good question.
We have the main list showing up first. Like, what would happen if we press the back button now?
Okay, let's try that.
I don't think anything would happen. That's because we weren't anywhere initially, and that was the home screen. So anywhere we wanted to go from the home screen. So that's why, or otherwise, if we didn't use the go back thing, we wouldn't be able to reverse the stack. Like we wouldn't be able to remove pop items from the stack. So this is good.
Yeah. Okay. So
we'll use navigation.
Do we have props like this is the default screen here?
Yes, we have those available. I actually don't remember them because I usually refer to the docs. So this is the stuff that I remember. There's a lot of customization that can be done along with this. Like suppose you want headers, you don't want headers, you'd like your draw to appear like this. You could have custom components for your headers. Like you could use our NativeBase headers as well, which we've actually included in our docs. Like how would you do that with React navigation?
Switching from one home page to
Yes.
second page, third page, fourth page.
Yes.
That's fine. Then from fourth page to the home page.
Right.
Like if you are switched here, main is to home screen.
Right.
That changed the whole app. Like
Right.
this is not working at all. Like we are not able to see the home page. We have switched this alignment.
Actually, that's what Sanket was mentioning, that there's a prop that comes along with it. Initial screen. So you pass the screen that you would like to show up initially, and that's the one that will show up.
And also you can jump between the screens. Say if you go like to the fourth screen in the stack, you can directly jump to the second one or first one. That's also possible.
Okay, in home screen, I want to have two buttons. On clicking one, I want to launch other screen, like screen number 2. And on clicking the other button, I want to launch screen number 3. Okay. So in this case, like when I am going back, it will be screen 1 still. So in that file where we mentioned actually the order which app.js is. So does the order matters over there? Not here exactly. The previous
Yes.
Yeah. So here the order matters.
It doesn't actually. It comes with a prop. It's called initial screen. So whatever component you pass, that will be the initial screen that shows up. So I actually didn't use that prop here because I don't remember the syntax and stuff. But if you don't pass that prop, then the first object that you're passing, that's taken as the initial screen. Otherwise, you can explicitly mention, okay, this is the screen that I want to show up.
In this case, how we have to save the instance, like passing data from one screen to other screen, or changing orientation,
which is also possible. Like you pass some payload along with, like suppose you want to navigate from one screen to another, and like from the first screen you have a text box where you input some text, and the next screen there should be a component that shows that text. So we can do that. We can pass payloads from one screen to another.
or saving the instance, like when we change the language in devices, so it recreates the screen.
I'll answer that here. So you can either use the navigator object and pass the payload directly there to pass data between screen 1 to the transition screen. That's what we are doing. And to answer your second question, how do we set environment variables like language and all those things? So that's where state management libraries come in. So we move the state completely outside the application in a separate isolation, and that is accessible from all the screens. Okay, that's where Redux and other mobile libraries come in. Okay, so we have the next slide actually about that. So if we are running out of time, we'll just quickly wrap up the state management part of it, and then we'll take a quick break. So next one, yeah. We'll have a question down offline. We can have it. I think. Okay. Yes.
So you have shown an option to hide the header, right?
Yes.
So there is another way of doing it, like mentioning the stack navigator itself, header mode as none, right?
Okay, I guess that should be there. I wouldn't know about it.
Actually, I'm facing the issue that I use the options.
be available afterwards. He's not in. Okay. Alright.
Alright, we'll have Himanshu talk about state management.
Hello everyone, I'm Himanshu. I'm co-author of NativeBase. So I'm going to talk about state management. So the app that we have built, that Star Wars app. So you saw in the name-based component, we have a local state. So that we, whenever we fetch the data from server, we store it in the component's local state. So okay, so to get started, can anyone tell me what is state management? Anyone, anything, like any inputs?
You store properties temporarily whenever like the application runs. For example, let's say like he was using in the loader. So when say let us click loading in that function, that way,
Yeah,
sure. The person is logged in or not.
Right. Yeah. So most of the apps have to handle some kind of data. So you get data from the server. You have to manipulate data based on some user interactions. So you have to have some kind of state management. So so these are two of the popular state management libraries that we use, Redux and Mobix. But do we actually need these libraries? The app that we built, Star Wars app, it didn't have any state management. So it's not needed. You can have local states in your components and store data there. But let's say your app gets pretty complex and there is a lot of data, there are a lot of components. So sometimes you need to share state between multiple components. Sometimes one component wants to mutate the state of another component. So the state management libraries come into the picture then. So okay, so we have Redux, which is a predictable state maintainer. So what it means, like in Redux, the most I like what I like most about Redux is that it's very easy to debug. Okay, so it keeps the state separate from your components and it works totally based on actions. And we have Mobix, which has a different kind of approach, and it works on reactions. Like whatever changes you make to your state, it triggers some reactions. So I'll just provide an overview here because I think most of the people are beginners here, and according to me, if you are getting started with React Native or React, you should first start with a local state, and then jump into any of this. Okay. So this is the architecture of Redux, how Redux works. So,
just get it from that. This is the complex architecture. Getting into details
yes.
will be take a long time.
Okay. So if any of you want to talk about like it in detail, I'll be available. So we have Redux and Mobix architecture. So we'll skip that. So the basic points I'll just compare. So Mobix works on.
We have a question.
Yeah.
How does the component come from state has been changed?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that. So in Mobix, we have object-oriented, and in Redux we have functional programming. So there is kind of a wall between object-oriented programming and functional programming. Okay. So I think most of you, if you are from Java, something, so you will be familiar with object-oriented programming. So and it is easier to get started with. So Mobix is good for beginners, and Redux is functional. So it works on pure functions. So yeah, and Mobix has observables. So what observables means is in your classes which define your stores. So you have the properties of those classes will be made observables, so that whatever is changed there, your components can listen to those changes. So to answer your question, so components can kind of subscribe to those changes. So whenever those properties are mutated, so components will be re-rendered. While Redux works on plain objects. And whatever changes you want to make to the state, you have to make it through actions. In MoveX, you can mutate the state directly. But Redux, everything goes through actions. So that is why it's more easier to debug. And then, yes, as I said, data mutation. You mutate the state directly in MoveX. And in Redux, you have immutability. And MoveX is multi-store. So you can, in your app, you can identify different entities and initialize them with different stores. And in Redux, everything lives under a single store. So you have kind of a state tree, and whatever changes you make to that, the part of tree which gets changed, only the components which listen to that part of tree will get re-rendered. Okay, and in MoveX, you can have nested state view. That means, let's say you have a blog post, and then inside you have comments, and it is kind of a nested data. So you can keep the store nested in MoveX. While in Redux, if you keep things normalized, that is better. So that is just an overview of state management. So if you have any questions.
I wanted actually that slide to be explained, not for MoveX but for Redux.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Only if this part can be covered, you know.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So this thing that you see here is store. Store comprises of reducer and state. Okay. So the view part of your app is rendered from the state. So whatever changes are made in the state, your view gets re-rendered. Okay. And to make changes to the state, view has to dispatch some actions. So whenever you want to make a change, you have to dispatch an action. Then the action goes through middlewares. So we have middlewares in Redux. I won't go into the details, but if you want to make API calls and those kind of things, so that goes through middlewares. So as you can see, middleware then makes the API calls, and then again it goes to the reducer. And when the API call is completed, then it again goes through the reducer and changes the state. So that's how the view is re-rendered whenever the change is made. Is it clear?
What does the reducer do?
So, yeah. So reducer, whatever the action is dispatched, it goes through the reducer. So we have different reducers in our store. So some actions are mapped to reducers. Some reducers reducer will check what the action was dispatched, and according to that, it will make changes to the state.
So it's just a function.
Yeah, reducer is just a function which which accepts two parameters. As you can see, reducer has two arrows coming into it. So it gets the previous state, and through dispatcher it gets the action. So it checks what action it is, and it makes changes to the previous state according to the action that was dispatched. Actually, it doesn't make changes to the state. It gets the previous state and it returns a new state. Yeah.
So only one reducer for the parent component, which will have all the child elements, or separate child elements will have their own reducers?
Yeah, so you have a single store in Redux, but yes, you can separate it into different reducers. So it's not like you should have a different separate reducer for each view. Okay, so you can divide it according to your. You can separate the entities and then have the reducers.
Any best practices to be used here?
Actually, there are.
Okay, I would like to interrupt. Actually, there's a mixed crowd here, so it might not be interesting for most of you, but for few of the people who are into React and React Native, this is the topic to be. But still, maybe what we can do is we can have a little break right now, okay? And then we'll carry on with Siddharth's topic, which is very much interesting, and that's pretty much common to everyone. And then after that, if time allows, then we can get back to this, and people who are interested to listen about this can stay here. I think that would work out well. All right, so we'll just take a quick 5 minutes break. Okay? Yeah, thanks.
because we have our own internal projects going on. Sorry? So we have like one is the NativeBase society, and we do product services. And we have a product that we are working with Sanjay is going to announce in the last year. So we do not do that. Just review, sneak preview. One of the actions is like a drag and drop to build apps. That we were able to get a product for us. Yes, not for business, but we are trying to fix the problem of the UX, UI guys, and then having the core development like wiring up with the data side and these things. So we are trying to bring them to the
All right. Guys, can we settle down? Guys, can we settle down? We'll just have the next one. We can carry on. Alright, so here we have Siddharth. He's a software architect at Facto. So all the crazy stuff which you see in the app, Facto app, was architected by them. Okay, most of them. Okay, and his topic is pretty interesting today, which is how do you port a mobile web to React Native app. I'll leave it to you.
Alright, you guys can hear me? Oh, somebody has a beer.
Can we have a round of applause for him before he starts?
Okay, so I'm going to talk about the experience and the learnings from porting a mobile website to native. And quick disclaimer, this is extremely noob advice. This is the first time I've worked with React Native. So some of the advice that I'm going to give is probably wrong, and you guys can correct me, you guys are the expert here. And okay, so I'm Siddharth. I'm Siddharth KP on basically everywhere. I'm a JavaScript architect at Facto. And unfortunately, most of the stuff you see at Facto is not by me, because I just came into dominance like a few months back. But hopefully, everything now that you see at Facto is going to be. Let me start like this. How many of you already have a website at your company? Just to raise your hand. No, surprising less. How many of you have a native app? That's also surprising less. Okay, what? The rest of you, what do you have? Do you send written letters? Because I would sign up for that. I just okay. So the application that we're experimenting with is called Instagram, and let me quickly find it. There it is. Okay, so I already have the web version of it running. Almost running. This is when you go and get coffee. The type is bundling. Oh, alright, so this is Instagram. It basically loads a few photos. And it's like a shameless clone of Instagram that you can tell, and it's so fake that these photographs are not even from Instagram. They're actually from Unsplash, because Instagram APIs apparently need an approval process, which I couldn't get through last time. So I used the public internet. Alright, so this is the app. It's pretty simple. It has a nice pretty header. It pulls posts from a public API. It shows the avatar. It shows the name. It shows the photo. There's an infinite list of photos. That's pretty much it. Right? It's that simple. And so, just a shameless plug, because why else am I here? This was made with something I call React with a Q. It's a horrible name to say because you can't differentiate, but looks good on text, so I'm sorry. You install it by saying npm install React, save, and what it gives you is this one script called React, which you put in dev and start. When you say React dev, it bundles up things like I just showed you, and it gives you a hot module reload environment. So you change your text, it renders on your browser. So like good developer experience. And when you're ready to take it to production, you just pull your code on the server, just say React. It will bundle the production environment, minify, amplify, all of that performance as, and start a server over there. Right? Okay. So to start with this, the one thing that I had on my mind, or one thing that is pretty popular, right, is that we have React for the web and we have React Native for native, right? With the ugly logo for some reason, I don't know. They couldn't come up with anything creative, so they just desaturated and say, this is native. So we have these two, right? But if I already have a website, do I really want to maintain another app? Do I need another stack, right? So my answer was, I'm not going to do that, right? This is not something I'm going to maintain. Like, I don't want two stacks and then every time my designer says, can we make this button blue instead of green? Then I have to go to two code bases and submit to PR, all of that, right? I want one code base, I want the same flow. So that's the basic fundamental of this talk, that we want one code base which will power both native and web. I don't know what they call it, isomorphic, universal. I think we've kind of overdone with these jargon. Like, I'm calling it transcendent because it sounds the coolest. But invent your own shit, doesn't really matter. So the goal of this experiment is we want one code base. We want to use as much code as possible while maintaining a great developer experience. So when I broke down this problem, there were three core things to this problem. First was the tooling. So for native, I have different toolings. I have Expo and I have Xcode and all of that, Android bundles, which I did not even go into. Then there is the logic part of things, fetching data, getting users to log in, state management, all of that. And then there's the presentation there. What do I show to the user, right? So these three are three different broken problems, and we'll get into each one of them one by one. First of all is tooling. So they've already talked about this. This is, I think, the best thing happening to React Native right now, which is I'm going to try to demystify the jargon once again. There is a project called Create React App Native, which gives I'm going to try. I'm going to fail, but I'm like, what?
I said it just keeps getting confused.
It does. So let's try. Worst case, I'll confuse them even more. So then they'll end up using NativeBase because they can't figure out. So Create React App Native, or CRNA, because Twitter only allows 140 characters, is a project which lets you create a React Native app quickly, right? So the agenda there is from getting to 0 to hello world as fast as possible. And how you do that is you do npm install -g, which is for global, and then you say create React App Native. Does CRNA actually work? Is that something that they already have? Because this is like way too much to type, right? So anyways, you do the slogging and you say create React App Native without typos, and then you mention your app name, right? So let me show you how that works. Okay, I'm going to refine, and I'm going to totally cheat because internet, I don't trust the internet. I'm going to say create React App Native, which I already have installed. Native app. Why is it not a short form? And then you say native app, right? And what it's going to do, it pulls up Yarn, it installs a bunch of things, installs all the scripts. You don't even need to look at it, just look away, get a coffee, right? Do those things while Yarn uses its super speed to download everything. And then, okay, I'm going to go now. And when it's actually done, so when it's actually done, it looks something like this. Right? This is my folder structure. So if you see, there is a bunch of things, right? Like there is so many things that is just unnecessary probably. So the things that actually matter are this app.js and this package.json. Right? That's the only two things that matter. Let me open them up for it. So package.json tells me what is this guy. This app is Instagram, it's some stuff I don't need to know. This is what I need to know, right? That there are scripts. So I've altered these scripts for readability. Basically, it gives you a script called React Native Scripts, and then you say start, which will spin off your dev environment. Let's try that. I'm going to say npm. How many yarn fans over here? Just raise a hand. All of you guys. I'm going to say npm run or npm start. Keep on. You can just run npm run and it will tell you what you can do. Oh, npm run need to. Cool. So it starts the packager. Now this is interesting. This is the expo packager, right? So create React Native app is a project which lets you quickly boilerplate or quickly start with a React Native application. It uses expo CLI inside to actually bundle the thing and give you a JavaScript that you can run on your phone. Did that make any sense at all? I'll take these guys' smiles as a big fat no. So, and the coolest part about this is it gives you this big fat barcode, QR code, which you can use the Expo app and scan it. I'll have to go to the other end. Somebody else is like encouraged to try and see what they get. So, what this will give you is a hello world application, right? What we just saw initially. But all of that is boring, right? So let's move on and come back here, right? But this is the best thing to happen to React Native in a long time. Expo guys are the guys who kind of made it possible, but they couldn't get the outreach without Facebook's marketing money. So they tied up with Facebook, renamed the project, and now they're super relevant. Right? The best thing about this is snack.expo.io, which I think changed its name thrice because people got mad. I think they were called Sketch before, but then people were like, Sketch already exists, right? So our designers use. And then they were like, cool, designers use Sketch, developers use Sketch, what's the difference? And then somebody actually gave them a legal notice that ye nahi chalega. So they had to like find something else. They found Snack, and that's also fine. So if you open snack.expo.io, it's kind of like a dev environment, something like JS Fiddle or JS Bin or Webpack Bin, one of those browser things. Let me actually open it up here. Very, very good. And I think it's the best place to learn React Native when you're starting out. It gives you a Expo QR code, which you can scan on the Expo app and use it. It also comes with this fancy emulator in the browser, which is like one of the most amazing things I've seen. Also the most limited free period thing I've seen. It only works for like I think 10 hours and then you have to pay. So I've been saving this for the talk so that I don't run out. And okay, so yeah, you basically write code here and then it shows up there. They've initialized it with the hello world example. I'm going to write something really. Yeah, so it says change code in the browser editor and watch it change on your phone. So we're just going to prove that it works by deleting most of this. Yeah, and now when I say you see it actually changed. The good part about this is you can try out things over here. They have a huge component list which comes with React Native. So for example, I'm sure activity. Yeah, activity indicators, notification guys, the loader guys, all of those guys are already there. I can drag this and start learning about it. Let me put it as the export. I don't. Cannot find variable active after import it, I guess. Anyway, I don't care. So basically it lets you play around with a lot of components so that you can see what React Native is about and without all the fuss of installing 1,000 different node modules or big Xcode bundle on your laptop. Moving on. Cool, coming back to our 3 problems. Tooling, logic, presentation, right? Tooling is the one we'll begin with, and to be honest, it's slightly the most annoying one to get it right. There are 2 problems here, right? One is that your browser needs a Webpack environment or a Gulp or whatever you're using as a build tool. You need to create a JavaScript bundle and serve it onto the browser. On the native side of things, you also need to create a JavaScript bundle, but not with Webpack, with Expo, so that Expo adds its own flavor and it can tie up to the native components on mobile. So, and this, I actually did not have a lot of problem with this because create React native app gives you all of the native environment, and I'm using React with a queue on the browser side, so I actually just have two scripts which bundle two things differently. Yeah, this guy native and web. So when I say let's try out web is running, awesome. Right. So when I load the web guy, I get this, and when I scan the QR code that Expo gave me, I can actually open the other thing on my mobile. And the only problem with this whole thing is that Webpack is very greedy about requiring stuff. So you basically have to tell Webpack what to ignore. So in this case, I'll just open my Webpack config quickly for the ones who are interested. What modules we have? Right, you need to add basically this one line which tells Webpack to ignore React Native. And this just tells Webpack that don't worry about it. If it doesn't exist, break. If it exists, I'll handle it. You don't need to. So you just ignore it and you're good for now. Right? The other part of this is the logic part of it. So logic is basically all of your data fetching, all of your user management, all of your app starting pages and all of that. Right? Anything that doesn't require something shown to the user, anything on the screen. So these are the three things that you can do. First is you want to reuse all of this, right? That's the whole point of it. Reuse data management, state management, routing, all of that. How do you do this? Is you keep your presentation away from your logic. So what I've simply done is every file that I saw that had styles, I split it out and put it into a different file. So that now this file actually does not have anything related to presentation. So if you think about it, React is one library, which is your central library, and then React Native and React DOM are two additional libraries which handle the rendering. React actually doesn't do the rendering itself at all, right? It just tells you, it gives you a declarative way of defining your components. And then you use React DOM on the browser to render it there, render a DOM, and you use React Native on your phone to render views or whatever you call it there. Sorry. So the more React code you write, it's going to be reusable, and just strip away the presentational parts out. Right? Same thing goes for state management. If you keep your state management in your logic components, or I'm calling them container components here, you're good to go. Keep it away from presentation because then you're actually hampering the reusability. Third thing is routing. Right? So if you think about it, routing in the old PHP 2000 era sense on the browser and what native does now are pretty much the same. You have views. So you go from one view to another view, or what we call it? Screen, right? We're calling it screen 1, screen 2, screen 3. So you go from screen 1, you click a button, you go to screen 2. Right? This is the same way we used to make web page before the whole single page application, the SPA debacle happened, is you used to create pages. And you'll click a link and you'll go to another page, right? So your screens and your pages are actually the same thing. You treat them as entry points, that these are my different screens, and then I navigate between them, right? Keep it simple, that's the way you do it. Alright, the last part about this is presentation, right? Which is the most difficult part. So the popular advice over here is keep your container, your state management, action, reducer, all of that separate, all of that common, and then create a presentation folder and create different templates for each device type, right? So for web, you'll have different templates. For Android and iOS, you'll have different templates because they essentially are two different, devices and two different stacks, essentially, right? But that's not very helpful, right? I'm saying these are rules, right? Do we have to follow them rules? Not really, right? Why should we? So you should know all the rules just because you can break them. Right? So find out why this popular advice exists and then say, no thanks. So the challenges in this is twofold. One is, how do you render styles? So we saw there is a style sheet component earlier, right? Let me go back to my native app and show you that. I have this app.js, right? Oh, I deleted it, awesome. So let's go back to snack and they'll have it. Yeah, so this is something that you saw earlier in these guys' slides, which was there is this style sheet where you're putting your styles and then you're reusing them inside, right? This style sheet actually comes from React Native. And again, we just talked about how you want to reuse stuff. So the moment you're using something like style sheet for React Native, from React Native, you're kind of screwing yourself over that I cannot use this anywhere. So the first thing you do is pull these out into a different file. The second thing you do is find a way to abstract this another layer, right? So if you're on web, you basically use React or some styling library for React or just like the style sheet for web. And if you're on native, then you use style sheet from React Native. And the simplest way I found to do this was just take a CSS in JS library that supports both. So style components and glamorous are pretty good ones, which support web and native both. There's still a tiny clause over here, which is style components gives you two flavors. It gives you style components as a library, and it also gives you style components / native as a library. And now you have to decide if I'm on web, use the web one, if I'm on native, use the native one. So how do you do this? The first thing you do is find out which platform are you on. So this is an easy way. You get navigator as an object in the browser, right? It gives you like a bunch of information about user agent and device type and all of that. Luckily, React Native also gives you that. So this 3 lines lets you decide. If there is no navigator, then I must be on the server. I'm server rendering things. If navigator.product is React Native, then I'm on React Native world. Otherwise, I'm in the browser, right? So these 3 things let me decide what I really want. And I'll show you where I use them. So I have this header guy, right? The one which is here, this guy. Now this guy needs to render style components, the web one for web, and style components, the native guy for native. And so what you do is you create a wrapper. Basically, I've created 3 or 4 helper functions to help me out. And this is what it looks like. I get the platform from the earlier file, and I say if platform is native, then require style components / native. If platform is not native, then require this, right? And the rest of the things should almost be the same. Let me hide that for you. Yeah. So this is the basic gist of it, that you load the files you want based on a condition. And when you bundle this with Webpack, you basically are saying that Webpack will run on the server side of things, it will skip the native one, it will not get this guy, it will get the other, which is perfect. So now if you look at this, I'm just defining top bar, I'm giving it CSS, and that's what you get with some of the new cooler libraries, that you don't have to write the JavaScript CSS like this, text, a line and all of that crap. You can actually write plain old good old CSS and just use it. And then I'm just passing Instagram in this wrapper component to render my style. Now if you see, there is this voodoo that I've written block, right? Like, what is this block? Usually you just do a div and move on with your life, right? This voodoo exists because there are, the second problem with having both of these is that there are different tags for web and native. So on web you have div, span, anchor, image, all of those guys. On native you have view, text, scrolled view, scroll text, what is that? Scroll view, right? So for some reason they couldn't figure out how to make view actually scroll, so they decided to make 2, which is awesome for us because we just have to support 2 now. Good. Yeah, so how that hacky thingy works is that I say if platform is native, then create a map. Because when I'm writing code, I don't want to write 2 code, right? I want to write 1. So I start with a web one. I say when you see div, assume it's view. When you see a span, assume it is text. So I'm trying to create a 1:1 mapping, which as you can see, it's to begin with it's very easy, but then it completely breaks the flow. So for example, a scroll view is actually a div for the browser, but I've already said that div is a view, right? So I have to create fake tags for myself like list and block. So list is a scroll view, which is also a div. So I've created these 3 fake tags, page, list, and block, and I've just mapped all of them to div. So on the browser, whenever I come across these, I'll just fall back to div. On native, they'll be slightly more smart. And what I'm doing is, this piece of code is actually just a proxy that whenever you see view, assume it's a div on web. If you're on native, go ahead, try a view, right? So that's all the voodoo you need for using common tags and common CSS. The third part of things, which is, sorry, this feels like a ranting fest for native, but the units are also different. So on web, you get pixels, EMs, view height, all of those, right? On native, you get SP, which is scalable pixels, right? And you can't write the unit. You can only say, so for example, if I want to say margin top is 20 pixels, right? I don't say pixels, I just say 20. If I say pixels or scalable pixels, React Native gets mad at me, like don't tell me what to do, I know what this is. On the other hand, if you do the same with web, if you say 20, your browser will say, I don't know what 20 is. Is it 20 pixel, 20 EM, what are you trying to say? I don't understand, right? So these two are very conflicting things. So again, you create a tiny helper, which is, I call it S. It's the name is shitty, but the useful part is here, that if I'm on native, then just return whatever you said. If I'm not on native, add pixel to it and just send it, right? So that in my code, I can do things like this. I can say 24 and then wrap it in my function. My helper will take care of the rest, add pixel, not add pixel, whatever. Now, the third interesting fanciness is that the pixels don't mean the same for both of them. So scalable pixels is more of a device specific thing. So a scalable pixel on an iPhone versus on a Moto G will be very different. But that's not the same case with web. When I say 14 pixels, it's 14 pixels on all devices. Right? So that leads to a case where you actually want different sizes for web and native for the same value. So for example, if you see this header, I've actually passed 2 values and I'm saying font size is 24 and 20. Right? And over here in my splitter or smart guy, whatever, I accept 2 values and I say, if like you can pass 2, one will be used for web and one will be used for native. The same code is reused, it just passes back 1, right? And then you can also have some smartness that if there is only 1 value, then return that. If you want same for both, then you can just repeat the same value. Right? So this is an example. Padding on web, I'm using 20 pixels throughout, but on native, I'm using top is 40 and the rest is 20. This is also an interesting thing because Expo, when you load something in Expo kind of eats up the top space a little bit, so you can't see what's there, but you can push your content down so that you can start reading. So you want different styles in different places sometimes. Create a tiny function which splits them and gives you, right? Good. So we've solved 3 of our problems. One interesting thing there is when you're doing different tags for web and native, try preferring native. So I came around to this one after like feeling so badly, which is, and it's pretty obvious advice when you think back on it, that pick the guy which has a bigger sum of components. So React Native has a bigger diverse component list, whereas the HTML tags are limited. So when you want to say view is also div, scroll view is also div, and some of the other folks are also div, it makes sense to use native as the default so that you don't have to write a lot of code and then just create a map that all of these guys in my array mean div. So prefer the bigger set, which seems to be native, and then fall back to div or span by keeping a map. CSS units, wrap them in a function, decide based on an right? So seems like we've solved these 3 problems, right? By tooling is by using entirely different toolchain, but not letting them conflict. Logic by extracting logic out of React Native and React DOM both, by just keeping them in React. And maybe in the future you can also use it with React PR or something, so yeah, transcendence. And presentation components, try to fool React Native or React DOM, one of them, by just like writing one and falling back to the other when you don't have, right? By doing this tiny app that I have actually has 95% reusable code, right? Which is excellent. The only parts which are not reusable are the if cases in native and style, because I have to declare that ignore this logic for native, ignore this logic for web. That is the part that doesn't run in both. That's still part of your tooling. Everything else actually just falls back. Right? So these are my limited and noobish learnings on what this is. I'm sure there are better ways of figuring this out. Hopefully NativeBase also has a compatible web one. If you don't,
it does.
It does. So just use that. Ignore whatever I said.
No, this is interesting because in NativeBase we have used React Native Web. So that goes from React Native to web. But what you said was the other way around. So we are porting a web application to a native application. So yeah, this was a good one actually. Yeah.
Sure. So maybe what makes sense is having a React UI transcendent library which compiles to whatever you give it, because in the end you actually wanted to compile everywhere from chips to VR to native, and then one of the one of the transformers can actually just be NativeBase, which takes it and gives you NativeBase. Right? All the code is on siddharth.kv/Instagram. It's there are like 3 folders worth looking at. There is components, there is helpers, and there is pages. There is only one page in our route, so like you can probably ignore that. The rest of it is actually just components and helpers. Components is the common code. Helpers is the thing that helpers are the hacky, gluey functions that I just showed you, which will make your app work. Lastly, this is like fun disclaimer. If you're building features that are specific to an OS, the reusability will drop really fast. For example, if you have a notification drop, right, that doesn't happen. So all of that code is just relevant only to your native, and that part is never going to be reusable. If you're doing fancy things such as, say, pop-ups like Truecaller does, where you grab what is going on and show it from the clipboard, that would be only relevant to Android and will never happen on iOS, because like Steve Jobs never wanted you to make good apps. But yeah, so basically, the more powerful your app becomes, the reusability angle will keep dropping that fast, because you will end up making native platform-specific features. Right? And from what I hear, there is also some nuances to camera, and how you initiate a camera on Android and how you initiate a camera on iOS is also different. But of course, there's a library for that as everything in the world, which you can grab, and it will do similar polyfilling if checks like I was showing you. Right? The last thing I want you like ponder or want you to think about is this even a good idea in the first place? You have a website. Should you reuse the website, or should you recreate the website on native? Right? Is that even a good idea? So, in my opinion, it's a horrible idea, and I just wasted like half an hour of yours, because there is a key difference between the audience that you attract when you build a native app versus when you build a website. Right? So if your users are, say, they come once in a while and they transact on your website. Examples are Flipkart, right? What are other good transaction examples? I don't know. Let's just take Flipkart for now, right? People don't use it every day. It's not something that you keep doing. You come there once in a while, and then you transact, and then your job is done, right? So you leave. So that's why it made a lot of sense for Flipkart to make a PWA. Oh shit, Practo is a good example. You don't need a doctor every day, right? You need them like once in 3 months, once in 6 months. So go to Practo website, book, right? Open the web app, book, and then just like forget about it, right? You don't need an app taking up space and RAM and battery on your phone, right? As compared to think about Facebook or WhatsApp, right? These are things that are only powerful when you use them every day. Unless you're opening Facebook and liking other people's stuff, or you're posting that another guy got married and has a baby and all of that, right? Facebook doesn't actually gets its value. That's why if you see Facebook, the mobile web versus Facebook native app, there is a huge disparity in features. Right? Same thing goes for Instagram, right? The Instagram value actually comes from posting photos whenever you can, using those fancy filters, and I think if anyone gets how Snapchat or why Snapchat exists, you can also use that nose and ears thinking, right? So all of those things don't really make sense for on the web because you wouldn't use it once in a while. If you're a once in a while user, you don't need the app, you're not useful for them. Apps that need an engaging, continuous thing like chat apps and social networks deserve a good place in native, right? So reusing is a fun concept, but it probably never really makes any business sense to create the app in both the places, right? Find out what your audience is and create the best experience you can. And yes.
Yeah. So basically, you're making a mobile web app and a React Native app, right?
Yes.
So what if let's say, I'm targeting mobile web users. Sure. So what if I make a PWA out of it? So the reusability will stay in main, and also it will solve my issues like with mobile users. Like I'm happy to use a mobile web, right? So if it is a PWA, then it will be more fun.
Almost. So PWA is actually very promising right now, but there are a lot of nuances there. The first one is no iOS, right? So until iOS implements it, you still need a native iOS app for your iOS user. The other thing there is you actually get very limited things. So the first thing that they advertise is get a place on the home screen so that they remember you, right? If you're in the app drawer, the guy might come back, right? You actually own a place. With websites, people use it, people forget. You don't really exist on their phone, right? So add to home screen, you exist on their phone. The second thing they advertise is notifications, which is awesome because it's kind of parity to what
that is what I was thinking. When you were taking the notification, doesn't exist on the web. So what if I make a PW out of it? I can get notification.
Absolutely. So that actually makes a lot of sense.
And also like location and something. There's also something like that.
Yes. So it makes a lot of sense if you stop there. But the more you go into the web part of things, that I want notification drawer control, and I want to switch Wi-Fi, I want volume control, I want to switch on location by default, right? You see apps now ask you, can I turn on your location? You say yes and it does, right? These things are things that are not really possible right now in browsers, although they're coming faster than ever. But it still doesn't make a lot of sense. The key part there is if you actually have users that you want, that will interact with your app every day, you're better off having them on native because they've already gone through the cost of installing your app from the Play Store, right? So the cost to entry of native is very high. You go to the Play Store, you download 30 MB, you keep it there, it eats your battery, right? You know that this user is an interested user, right? As compared to web, people open your website, if they don't like it, they close it, right? So the cost is very low. So it totally depends on your audience. If your audience is the kind you want them to stick around and they only add value to you if they use it every day, then you should actually go for a native one so that you'll have more meaningful users, less noise, and they'll stick around. The web, even though they're trying to build all those functionalities, it's still, I don't think it's a right platform to target. You'll get a lot of top of the funnel, a lot of traffic, but the users that will actually convert and be meaningful would be a tiny percentage. So it depends on your use case. A lot of people are doing it, like Flipkart does it to attract people. They come on the PWA first, and the moment they say offer, they say install our app. Right? So that seems to be a popular hook that people are using. Like bring the traffic, and then if they're actually interested, convert them to the game. So the takeaways from this is use great React, use CRNA, can you just call it Sarna? Use Sarna. Use Sarna with React with a Q to get both the environments in parallel with hot reloading. You can write your code once. You can keep your phone and your browser like this. The both will change and you'll feel nice about yourself. Keep your presentation away from your logic. Logic is very reusable. Presentation isn't so much. Load the right library based on the environment. You don't want your bundles to be super big. Browser will anyways break if you give it React Native. So check the environment, load only what you need. Fourth is the extra mile about reusability is use one flavor of tags. For example, use native tags, scroll view, text, all of that, and create aliases for the HTML so that you can reuse most of it. That's all I have. I'm Siddharth KP on Twitter. Give me followers. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them at me now or later.
Alright, very good one actually. So that nice. Okay, so can we connect? We've got something to show you guys actually. Shameless promotion of calling guys in a React Native Meetup and then showing our stuff. Alright, so we at GeekyAnts, we have been trying a lot to bridge the gap between the designers and developers. Like with NativeBase, we got our first thing, like you see nice UI and you want to bring that same thing in your apps, you just use NativeBase, right? So as a next level, we saw that there's a problem which still exists. Like we have graphics design team and then graphics design team. That's not right. Yeah. Then we have graphics designers who come up with beautiful UIs, and then we have UI developers who take this design and they build UI, like they use view and text tag or div or span with custom CSS just to match the graphics design into your app, right? So there's a step like graphics design, then UI development, and then logic integration. Okay, so we are trying to solve that problem. And how cool would it be if you have Photoshop and you right click and say generate HTML and CSS or generate a React Native app? It would be cool, right? Okay, so we are building a tool which does that for you, and we are trying to bring the designers and developer on the same GitHub repo or the same Git repo. Okay, so that whatever designers design, it actually generates React Native code for you. Then developers can come in, integrate the business logic, and then give it back to the designers. They can just modify things. So I'm just going to show a little preview. Okay, bloopers. All right. Do we have UI developers in the house? UI developers. All right. Very good. So the transition is like Photoshop, then UI development, and then business logic implementation. So, all right. So you can just show the demo. Yeah. Next one.
This is what we were talking about.
Yeah. So this is the bottom line. How cool would it be if Photoshop generated React Native code? It would be awesome. Okay. Next. So this is the tool which we are building, and this is a very, very early sneak peek. This looks like Photoshop, and if you have ever worked with Sketch app, this is something like that, inspired from that. You can just go ahead and drag and drop components, and then it will just generate React Native code for you. And developers can get back and edit the things which will be seen here. So it's bi-directional, which is very exciting. That's all from us. Yeah. We have some refreshments available. So we have pizzas, Coke, and beer. So help yourself. Thank you.
Is it, I have one doubt last one, sir.
Yeah.
So is it like Muse for React Native? Adobe Muse for React Native?
I didn't get a question. So it actually generates the React Native code.
So Adobe Muse is actually a platform similar to like this. What it does is, you can design the layers just like Photoshop, and then it recreates everything on the layer for the layer. Okay, so it's similar like Adobe Muse.
So what we are targeting is you can right click and open a JavaScript file using this. Right click and open a JavaScript file which will just get you something like this. And whatever changes you make, it actually makes those changes in your JavaScript file. Okay? Demo, we are still working on it. We have alpha release next week, and we are looking for beta alpha testers. So if you have entered your email address, you'll be getting an email for this. Alright? Okay. Fine. Thank you.